Hello, everyone, and welcome to Writing Quest. My name is Brendan Pugh, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking about Book 3 of The Wheel of Time, The Dragon Reborn. Huzzah! Alright, so as you know, when we do these reviews, I kind of give you a few of the bad things and a few of the good things of what I felt happened in the book. And so I'm going to start with the bad, as always. We can end on a good note. And so here we go. Number 1, it was fairly predictable. This is the first one of the first 3 that I've read that I felt like basically from the beginning, I kind of knew what was going to happen. There was nothing really in it that was super surprising. Some of the magic system stuff was a little surprising and cool, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But it didn't really have any, basically from the beginning of the book, they have some dreams and some things happen that foreshadow events at the end, and you kind of can just guess what's going to happen. So that was kind of the first thing where I felt like it was fairly predictable, whereas the first 2, I really had no idea where it was going to go, especially The Great Hunt. I kind of had I didn't really know what was going to happen. So this one for me just was very predictable. Number 2, I don't really care about Moraine right now. I really liked her in Eye of the World, and I liked her in Great Hunt, although she's not in The Great Hunt too much. But pretty much everything in this book, she's not even in it a whole lot, but she's just not my favorite right now. She's definitely turning into just like the manipulator character. She's just meddling and putting her hands in everything and like trying to steer the events of the world. And I just... I don't know. I'm not a big fan of her. I'm liking Lan. I like Lan as a cool character, but at the same time, he hasn't had a whole lot of different character development yet. He's pretty much just been the same thing. They definitely had a couple of good character moments for them, and I can see him diving into Moraine and Lan's relationship a little bit more and what it means to be an isodie and the warder and how it all works together. But ultimately, I'm just not a big fan of their storyline at the moment. Number 3, the isodie and the Amerlin seat. Pretty much don't like any of them. The whole thing it's so interesting. It actually is a really good commentary on, normal life, and that they're talking about them being ta'veren, and the pattern of the wheel weaves around them. And then there they are trying to manipulate everything and make it all happen. And it's like, well, if the pattern has a plan and these 3 people can manipulate the plan around them, what can the Aes Sedai and the Amerlin do? The stuff with the Black Ajah is cool and the pursuit of them, but the actual, what the Amerlin seat and the Aes Sedai are doing back at the White Tower is just mostly annoying to me. Number 4, Rand's character development is obviously it's early in the series, and surprisingly, what's hilarious about this book being called The Dragon Reborn is that Rand is barely in it. I feel like he, I understand that there's definitely parts of the story that, there's all these long-standing legends and myths, and so he's feeling this if I am the Dragon Reborn, then I'm destined to go crazy and I have no choice. But I do feel like he's kind of just accepting it pretty quick. Like he's just like, well, I'm going to go crazy. And so that's just how it is. I feel like if from the beginning of the book, he would have fought it a little bit more, he would have be, fighting against some of those things a little more. Maybe he does later on. Obviously, once again, these reviews are based on a very long series, and I've only read the first 3 books. So, be nice to me as far as that happens. But at this point with Rand, I'm kind of like, I don't really care about him too much. I liked him a lot in the first 2. The Great Hunt is obviously a huge book for Rand. It's a huge, the whole story pretty much stays with Rand. And so this one, of course, is totally not about Rand. And so I really just think he's kind of meh at this point. And number 5, the disregarding of everything that happened with the Horn of Valeer. So not to get into too many spoilers, but the Great Hunt was all about the hunt for the Horn of Valeer. And the events of book 2, I feel like don't really affect the events of book 3. There's a little bit in the beginning of, Rand revealing himself and all that stuff kind of is filtering as a legend throughout the whole world. But I just like it just went away. Like they did some stuff with Matt getting healed from the dagger, and they kind of talked about it, but then they just kind of abandoned it. And to me, it was like I feel like they set that up as such a huge thing, and then it just became not a big in book 3. Obviously, it's going to come back around, but I thought it was strange that we didn't really deal with it too much at all. All right, on to the good. Number 1, Perrin and the Wolf Brothers stuff. I just think it's super cool. The whole beginning of The Dragon Reborn, the first, I don't know, like 4 or 5 chapters is all with Perrin and Moraine, and I'm loving it. I think all the wolf stuff is super cool. It's super unique stuff that, I've never really seen before. And considering the fact that the book I'm writing has a lot to do with wolves, it's really cool to be reading another book that has wolves, because that's not something I've seen a lot of. Put some stuff down in the comments below if you know of some other stuff that has wolves that's really good. But I'm a big fan of Perrin and the Wolf Brothers stuff. I think his storyline is super cool, and I think the stuff they're going to do is really cool with it. Number 2, the story with 3 girls, Elaine, Egwene, and Nynaeve. They're not necessarily my favorite characters. I don't necessarily like any of them individually, but as a group, it's kind of cool to watch what they're doing and how they're going about things. Progressing through the Aes Sedai stuff, going on this mission to find the Black Aja, and how their powers are developing, and it's starting to show like that they are some of the most powerful that there are, like glimpses of that are coming through. And so I just think it's a cool group story. Again, Nynaeve I talked about in the last book, where she started becoming pretty cool to me, but as individual characters are not necessarily my favorite right now, but the group story is pretty cool, and it's pretty cool to watch them kind of all travel through the world and experience things in a different way, and their powers changing and all that stuff. Number 3, this one was definitely one of my favorite things of book 3, and it's been one of my favorite things of the whole series, is the continuing development of the magic systems and the different magic systems and how they interact. This one was really heavy on the dream world, and so there's like the dream world and all the elemental stuff and the Aes Sedai power and the one power, just how it all it's a really cool lesson in seeing how you can have multiple magic systems that are not really related but interact. And I think that's something that we've fallen into with a lot of fantasy recently, where it's like there's one magic system. There's just one type of magic system, and that's all there is. And it's really cool to see like there's this dream world, and there's the one power, and there's all this stuff and how it interacts. And it's probably all related somehow, which I haven't gotten to yet, but currently how it's being presented as different magic systems that all kind of have their own rules, but then interact in certain ways. It's a really cool concept, and I'm really enjoying that a lot. Number 4, Matt and Tom's relationship is super duper cool. I'm loving all the stuff with Matt and having luck and the dice games, and Tom going along for the ride and being kind of a grumpy Gus about the whole thing. It's just a really cool pairing. It's a really cool, you have the 2 most carefree characters, but they're carefree in different ways. Tom is carefree, but he's not so much, he wants to stay out of danger, but he's carefree and like nonchalant about caring about the story. Whereas Matt is way more interested in the actual story, but he's a little more carefree about the danger. So it's kind of cool just to see them interact, and then all the stuff going on with Matt and his luck, and he's playing dice games and making money. And when I read Eye of the World, all of the going to all these different bars and villages and stuff was really tedious to me. But now that I'm further in and into The Dragon Reborn, it's kind of a cool thing to see them like hopping to all these different taverns and bars and staying at all these different inns and like meeting all these different people. It really does help solidify the character development of the story for sure. And number 5, the development of the Forsaken. This was a super cool thing to me. I love how it's kind of subversive. So we're starting to get these glimpses of, like we said, we didn't really have anything in the Eye of the World. We had a little bit, and then the Great Hunt. had a few more things that started popping up, and they started talking about some more. And now with this one, they start revealing some different things about them. And so it's kind of a cool way of like, you're playing with who the enemy is. And so you are meeting all these random people and you don't think they're enemies, and now they are enemies. And some things you thought from the first book that were one thing are now another thing. And so it's really cool to watch the development of like that. I think that's one of the best things about Robert Jordan's world, is because it feels so ancient and people have lost touch with what the history is and all the things to study. It's cool to see him starting to weave together how people realize what things are. And so the Forsaken, I think, are going to be a really cool thing later on. That's what it feels like to me at this point. So that's it. So those are my 5 bad and my 5 good things about the Dragon Reborn. Overall, this was definitely not my favorite. I liked it better than Eye of the World, but so far the Great Hunt is my favorite of the 3 I've read. Currently, I've just started The Shadow Rising, book 4. I'm only a few hundred pages into that right now. The length of that book significantly jumped from the Dragon Reborn, but that's where I'm at. I'm into the book 4, and I think my order of books so far would be Eye of the World's on the bottom, then Dragon Reborn is second, and then The Great Hunt is third, currently my favorite. So that's it for this review. Thanks for watching. We'll put a comment below. Let's talk about it. If you have any insights or things I'm missing, please let me know and let's have a discussion. And we'll see you next time on Writing Quest. Huzzah!